Welkom terug. Nou die term gaslighting word nogals baie onlangs gebruik in die werksplek. En ons gesels vanoggend met Devan Moonsamy van die ICHAF Training Institute om meer daaroor te vertel wat is gaslighting en hoe dit natuurlik in die werksplekke kan, hanteer. Good morning, Devan.
A very good morning to you. Thank you for having me.
Such a pleasure this morning. Devan, I think let's start with your background a little bit. What did you study? What are you currently doing?
So psychology is my background, so that's my area of interest for many, many years. So I've really had a keen interest in understanding what makes people tick, particularly from a corporate psychology space. And I'm also the CEO of a learning institute. So we're a training provider that goes into organizations, and then we train in areas of soft skills, leadership development, emotional intelligence, and we do the hard stuff like NQF training. So from NQF 1 to NQF 6. So that's what prompted me to look further into this area of development and human interaction, gaslighting.
So let's speak about gaslighting, because I think there are many people that don't quite understand the term. What is the definition of gaslighting?
Now, you see, this term comes from a play that was written in the 30s by somebody named Patrick Hamilton. So in the play, there's a husband who tries to convince his wife that she's slowly losing her mind. So he had a very manipulative streak about him. He had some sort of agenda where he wanted to convince her that her reality was not how she perceived it. And he successfully did that in the play, and the play is called Gaslight. So the term actually comes from that particular play where he's disillusioning her and seriously manipulating her in a way so that he could become a little bit more advantageous in the marriage or in the relationship. So now we fast track to 2023, where gaslighting has become popularly known in relationships and within corporate spaces, colleagues' engagements, even friendship circles. So that's pretty much what gaslighting is, a form of manipulation where I would use this subtle level of manipulation to my advantage in any sort of relationship or engagement.
How do I know or recognize that it is gaslighting, for example, and not just constructive criticism or me and someone having an argument or disagreement? What would be the difference between that and actually gaslighting?
Now, you see, this is an interesting one. The recognition of it, so recognizing it in that moment can be quite difficult. What happens is sometimes people will reflect on the engagement. So somebody might reflect on the meeting they had with their manager, or maybe the discussion that they had around the table with some colleagues. And then in that reflection, they might feel that they weren't being acknowledged enough or weren't heard or perhaps feel a little bit unsettled about the engagement and the interaction. So sometimes in the moment, it's difficult to identify. But post the engagement, we feel a little bit uncomfortable. That could be a telling sign. Other times, it's a little bit more obvious when we're being gaslit and we feel uncomfortable in the current engagement. There are many different examples of it, but one needs to pay very, very careful attention to how I'm feeling at that moment. Is this aligned with what my true level of thinking is? So am I being interpreted in the way that I intended to? Or does this person, has this person distorted somewhat the way in which I actually meant to come across? So it's an innate feeling, it's an unsettling feeling, and it's a level of discomfort in the workplace or any other engagement we're having, even in the family environment.
Can it be that two people genuinely just remember a situation differently?
It can be. It can indeed be. So remember, when somebody is gaslighting another individual, it's not like it's a heavily premeditated agenda. Some people, it just comes naturally and instinctively. It's a defense mechanism. Companies are governed by policies and procedures. In organizations, everybody wants to be the best sort of employee, somebody who outshines. So even the person gaslighting may not necessarily know or premeditated or thought about, this is my approach in that moment. It's something that could have just happened right there. Maybe taking the credit for somebody else's work, maybe belittling a colleague, maybe even second guessing somebody else's credibility. So it's different to telling a direct lie. So a lie, we could go out of our way and we could discover now that is actually something that the colleague had told a lie about. But the form of manipulation is a little bit more tricky and difficult. So even remembering certain aspects, the way I remember it versus the way you remember it, even the gaslighter could be convinced in that moment that they are right.
What steps can I take if I think I'm being gaslit?
I spoke about it earlier about the recognition or recognizing gaslighting. So understanding that this is an engagement where I've been gaslit, it's very, very important. We have to identify and don't be in denial about it, because this type of manipulation happens a lot. People manipulate to get their way, to get promotions. Managers will manipulate a situation to get out of giving you a salary increase, as an example. So ideally, somebody may say, well, look, you're asking for a salary increase, and that questions your commitment to the organization. The business is growing, and we want committed people on board. But maybe the employee is really committed. So the recognition of gaslighting, firstly, and understanding it is very, very important. Once we understand, we've got to then maintain a level of self-awareness. And maintaining a level of self-awareness means getting in touch and connecting with the leader inside, your instincts, your feelings, having self-talk that guides you in terms of being emotionally sound to deal with this type of scenario. Also, some people would like to document different behavior. You spoke about remembering certain things. In meetings, minute everything that goes on, because what that does is it gives us a form of record keeping, and then we know what we said in a meeting isn't necessarily distorted. Remember, we are emotional beings at work, so people react emotionally, even at home or anywhere we are. We tend to react emotionally to things. Sometimes emotions can get the better of people. Best to write things down, because you have a rational tool or a rational source of reference. Trying to stay in the calm, rational zone. If you're feeling that you're being manipulated at work, don't confront it negatively or harshly. Remain calm, remain very, very rational. And once you get into the rational zone, you'll be thinking a little bit more clearly. And finally, set boundaries. Boundaries are very, very important. And boundaries, is something we've got to practice almost daily. How do I say no? In a tactful way? How am I able to navigate through my day with setting enough boundaries so I meet my objectives and deliver on the scorecard, but I'm also creating a harmonious work environment?
Do you think workplaces are doing enough to address this issue at the moment?
It's a form of psychology where people, it's still new, it's still a concept that people are sort of becoming comfortable with. We didn't talk about manipulation in the workplace 5, 10, 15 years ago. We didn't talk we didn't even talk about concepts like discrimination or inequalities at work. So everything is a journey. We're finding that corporates are now starting to pick up and have open conversations and dialogue about these types of things. And you'll notice that some organizations are faster in terms of implementing open dialogue and conversations than others around the globe. And those organizations are a little bit more ahead in terms of value proposition for people. These companies are where people are very, very happy and engaged and really committed, and then other organizations who are shying away and haven't included it in structured team forums or meetings to talk about human behavior are lagging a little bit behind. So it is a new concept. Not all organizations are comfortable and familiar. And let's be honest, not a lot of managers are comfortable having a conversation either.
Well, Devan, thank you so much for joining us this morning and speaking a little bit about gaslighting and things we need to take note of and be aware of. Thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you so much.
Dit is natuurlijk Devan Moonsamy van die ICHAF Training Institute. Bly gerus inskakel net die naaste tyd vir jou nuus.